is still alive. So, in Japan, we have this apartment called Chikobuken. They are apartments with cheaper price tags. Wow, you might think to yourself, why are they so much cheaper? And well, they don't have anything wrong with it physically, but you find that there is something off about it. So, Chikobuken in English means stigmatized property. There are many reasons to why an apartment may qualify as a stigmatized property or a Chikobuken. It could be that a natural disaster occurred, or it's a close proximity to like a bad neighborhood with gangs, and or maybe it's haunted. There are a few stories online on the Japanese online website regarding their experiences of staying in a Chikobuken, and they were quite interesting and very eerie. So I decided to translate it into English for you guys to enjoy. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Chikobuken 1. When I first told the story, no one believed me, but this is what happened. I'm in my 30s working in an IT-related company. Moving to a different apartment became a hobby, since I could work from anywhere. I've had many experiences living in Chikobuken, and its appeal hadn't worn out yet. The apartment was usually in a good condition and really cheap, especially if there was a murder or if multiple people had passed away in the room. I didn't believe in ghosts, so there was nothing for me to be scared about. I was just attracted to the price tag of these rooms. Yeah, and sometimes there was some noises, but I figured it was just the room settling. I thought people just liked to mistake it as some paranormal activity. But because of my job, I end up staring at the computer all day, so moving had actually helped relieve some of that stress. It allowed me to explore new neighborhoods and change my environment. I also made it a habit to keep as few items as possible. Being a minimalist has helped make it easier to move around. So the only thing I look for when moving is its price tag and the size of the room. And according to the real estate agent, the previous resident had killed himself in this room, and there seemed to be other incidents happening in the other rooms in the apartment too. My room was on the 4th floor, and I would press the 4 button on the elevator, but it would pass it and stop at the 5th floor. I contacted the building management to check the lift, but they found nothing wrong. I was doing work alone in the room one night, and suddenly the Bluetooth speaker would turn on. Loud music I never heard of would play. Other than that, while I was unlocking the door to my apartment, there was someone inside pulling the door shut. So I obviously called the police. But when the police came, the door opened easily and there was no one inside. I went to my room and worked as normal, but then I heard a sound coming from the bathroom. When I went to check, the shower was turned on. I still didn't believe that there were ghosts. I just thought that was just a coincidence, but something happened that I couldn't ignore. It was around 2 a.m. I heard a sound from next door. What a nuisance, I thought, making noises late at night. But that sound, I hear it every few minutes or so. I listened closer to the noise and I realized it was the sound of a mahjong piece getting mixed around. So, I thought about telling my neighbor off, but I wasn't really a fan of conflict. I grabbed a noise-cancelling headphone and headed to bed. But suddenly, yet again, a music I never heard of started to play loudly. I took my headphones off in shock. I wonder whose device my Bluetooth speakers had pressed the mic button on the intercom and answered, "Yes." Then without saying anything, the man left. That must be some drunk man, right? I told myself. And once that man disappeared, the noise also stopped. The next morning, I was heading outside to do some grocery shopping. I was met with my neighbor who I shared greetings once or twice before. This neighbor lived 3 rooms away from my apartment, and he returned home around 2 a.m. last night. He saw the man stand in front of the door to my apartment, but he thought nothing of it and went into his room. But before closing the door, he looked back and saw that the man stood still in front of my apartment. He then heard me from the intercom, then the man disappeared into the room next door. I heard him say disappeared, and I asked him what he meant by it. And he said, he didn't have any key with him, nor does anyone live in there at the moment. When I heard that, it sent chills down my spine, and then he continued, "Yeah, weird things like that happened around here." And he raises his hand, mimicking a ghost. I didn't believe his story really, even though something strange did happen. But that evening, something happened that still haunts me now. On this day, I was out with a client of mine, working pretty late, so I decided to meet with my friend right after to have some dinner. And we stayed at the restaurant until late hours. I told my friend about what's been happening in the apartment recently, and she decided that she would come help by staying over with me. And to be honest, I was relieved that she would be coming over. We arrived at around 2 a.m. at the apartment. We rode the elevator and pressed the 4th button, and it started taking us upwards. My friend joked that, what if the elevator just stopped out of nowhere? And then, as if they heard it, the elevator stopped. We both slowly turned our heads to look at each other, and we pressed the emergency button as soon as possible. Then there was a noise coming from the emergency intercom, but we couldn't understand what it was saying, and so we tried to press it again. Then a man answered the intercom. "This is elevator security company. Is everything alright?" And we replied, "We're stuck in this elevator." Then he replied with, "Okay, no worries. Please wait for a moment." And so we waited quietly. Then my friend said, "Maybe this is a part of all the weirdness that's been going around. Maybe it's a ghost." And we laughed it off. Then we heard a voice from the mic again. "Thank you for waiting. We will be moving in shortly, so please do stand still and wait for next instruction." Then again, another moment of silence passes, and we waited and waited, but the elevator wouldn't move, and we started to become more and more anxious. And it's past 5 minutes, yet the elevator would not move, and so I decided to press the emergency button again. "Hello, what's happening? Is everything okay?" The man from the emergency intercom replied, "Yeah, don't worry, we're doing a remote restart on the elevator, so please do wait. I can check that there's 3 people in the elevator, so I can assure you that there are no problem with our electrical wiring." Then my friend with the loud voice said into the intercom, "I'm sorry, there's 2 of us. Which monitor are you looking at?" And then the man on still, silent. What? There's a guy in the elevator who's looking at the camera. Once we understood what it meant, the lights in the elevator turned off and then turned back on again, and then stopped at the 4th floor. I panicked and I left the elevator as soon as I can. Then we walked slowly away from the elevator. Then my friend spoke, almost in tears. I saw it. And I replied, shaking. I saw it too. When the elevator lights turned off for a second, the corner glowed white, and my eyes matched with a man sitting on the floor of the elevator. After the incident, we quickly headed towards my apartment, but then the man that we saw from before stood right in front of the door. While me and my friend looked at each other, wondering what we should do, the man started walking slowly. Then, without opening the doors, he entered the apartment next to my room. We stood still, afraid of going into my apartment, but again afraid to go back into the elevator. And while we were thinking what to do, the neighbor I've spoken before came out of the door and asked if we were doing alright. And we told him what we saw, and he led us into his apartment, and he told us more about what happened in this apartment. So the room I borrowed was a crime scene a few months ago. The crime was a murder that happened between two neighbors who was fighting. First, the guy who lived next to my apartment would play mahjong, the game, and he was told off for the noise. But the man, instead of apologizing, became angry, and as a payback, and he would call the intercom on my apartment every night to harass him. And to fight that back, the man who lived in my apartment would play loud music, and these little fights continued on back and forth, and then the man who lived in my apartment thought that they should stop fighting as such, and so he invited his neighbor to his room. However, they began to get in a fight once again, and the man who lived in my apartment, in the midst of the fury, stabbed his neighbor, then killed himself after. And that night, I stayed over at my friend's and decided to stop the lease on the apartment. The noise of the mahjong in the late night and the loud music that would play to my Bluetooth speaker and the late night intercom. Maybe these two were still fighting as ghosts, but maybe they don't want to fight anymore, and that's why there was a man in the elevator who looked lonesome in the corner. And well, this is something that happened to me, and I'm sure many of you will find it hard to believe. But what I learned from this experience is that when people die, we don't disappear. Our soul, our emotion still lingers on earth. The end. So, are you now curious about what your previous tenant used to do in the apartment you're staying at? I think I'd prefer not to know, really. I mean, it's even scary to know that there are places where people have died or murders happened, you just never know. I don't necessarily believe